Iran has unfortunately always used and focused its funds on supporting terrorism, on supporting groups like Hamas, and it's done that when there have been sanctions, it's done that when there haven't been sanctions, and it's always prioritized that. And again, I come back to the proposition that these funds have always been, under the law, available to Iran to use for humanitarian purposes.
But that's the thing, the humanitarian purposes. This is the same government that can't tell you where the money in Ukraine is going. And they can't even tell you about the COVID relief funds. They don't even know where the hell that's going. But they're going to assure you that all of the $6 billion that were released as part of this rolling back of sanctions against Iran, that this was, oh no, not a single bit of it. It was all strictly, guys, just humanitarian purposes. No one believes that. Not a single person. I mean, Iran has funded Hamas for years. And in fact, as Lorraine noted in the piece, too, our good friend Andy McCarthy just the other day talked about the history of that funding to Hamas and just how much they're actually funded. Because the unfreezing the $6 billion is part of, the hostage deal that Biden insisted. He was just adamant that it had no connection to the Hamas attacks, that had none at all whatsoever. Well, nobody believes that, especially after the Wall Street Journal reported that Iranian officials, while they were meeting in Beirut, that they admitted freely in front of everyone that they had helped plan the assault, and that they were like gleeful over it. So that's, I mean, it's just not true. They absolutely helped plan it, and they helped fund it. But in Andy McCarthy's piece, he's talking about the circumstances under which that the administration chose to allow Tehran to access $6 billion in funding. I mean, they're going to be free to do whatever the hell they want to. And it's supposed to be rigorously overseen by Qatar. Do you believe that? Because I have a bridge to sell you. And they're only going to use it for food, medicine, and other necessities. And this is all due to the reason the money was frozen. It was all due to the sanctions related to the money being made off of them selling their oil. And, there are sanctions against that. And nobody would need to buy it if Joe Biden hadn't kneecapped us for our own domestic energy. I mean, we could be replacing them on the world market, but the Biden administration absolutely refuses to allow us the domestic drilling capabilities. And so he's curbed that. He's pulled leases. He's done everything he could to damage the United States' ability to put oil on the world market, to supplant that offered by Russia and Iran and sideline them economically, sideline OPEC, all of that, save the petrodollar. So he's chosen not to do that. And instead, I think that alone, I think he should be impeached for that alone, by the way, sidebar, because that's an attack on the country from this president's policy that disabled us NatSec style. I think that's one of the most traitorous moves I've ever seen. So you can sit here and talk about the drugs and the investigations for everything else. That alone does it for me. But back to this point, though, when he unfroze that money, and I think it was held in a South Korean bank, is the way that I understand it, because there are only a handful, I think 3 banks in the entire world that were even allowed to deal with it in the first place. And Qatar says, we're gonna vigorously oversee everything. No one believes that. So do you honestly think that they would not, if they got $6 billion marked for food and medicine, doesn't that equal $6 billion, as Andy noted, in existing funds that can be shifted to their main export, which is jihad? Correct? If you, like how Joe Biden giving money to his son allowed his son to shift money to spend on hookers. There's no way to argue this that doesn't end with the facilitation of jihad by this administration. There's no way. I mean, the video that is on MSN, even leftists, even CNN had to report this. Hamas leaders were celebrating the attacks on camera. They were in Qatar, and they were celebrating and laughing and then praying after watching the destruction I mean, the video's all out there. It's been on Twitter since 2 days ago, on the 7th. Just wild. And I don't trust Qatar to rigorously monitor anything. I mean, hell, they've been harboring Hamas's leadership. I mean, that's where this meeting was. That's where all the video was taken. Qatar completely harbors jihadis. I mean, they harbor Hamas. So it's silly to say, oh well, they're going to be some sort of unbiased partisan observer in all of this. No, they're a participant. So you have Hamas and Hezbollah, which are proxy groups of Iran. This is Iran attacking Israel through its proxy groups. Iran's the top funder of Hamas. And now you have Hezbollah opening in that front up in the north. This money absolutely went to facilitate this. Where do they, I mean, good heavens. I can't even believe we're having this discussion that as though we have to take it serious enough to actually argue against the assertion that this did not facilitate or help finance jihad. Juan's got on the simulcast, all the Hamas leaders in Qatar laughing and, they're looking at all the destruction. They were actually pointing, the video that they're pointing to was when they raided and were kidnapping people at that peace festival. Hamas leaders acting like they're civilized humans instead of the absolute dog asses they are. In some bougie office in Qatar, getting down, doing their performative theater after laughing about the kidnapping of innocent people at that peace rally. That's what they were pointing to. That truck that had the people in it, they had kidnapped women from that festival in Israel. That's what they were pointing and laughing at. There's no manners in war. There's no kindness either. This administration doesn't have the stomach to do what's needed to be done, and there are a lot of people in this country that don't either. We're a nation of people who are soft. I always love the people who say that they're nonviolent. You're not nonviolent. You're just a sissy. Nonviolence means that you have a possibility to be violent, and I don't think some of these people, I think, are too soft even for that. These people who other side this and other side that, there isn't the fortitude to do what needs to be done from a lot of people in this country. When you talk about geopolitical issues like this and you get into these sort of, conflicts, like what Israel's going to have to do, the Biden administration doesn't have the stomach for. What Israel is going to have to do to protect its people. There are portions of the United States where different numbers that don't have the stomach for it. And those are the kind of people that perpetuate this, by the way. I absolutely lay that at their feet because their softness and their inability to make a decision and their inaction enables this stuff. It empowers these types of terrorists who keep doing this over and over, year after year. I read a story where a young couple they have 10-month-old babies. These 10-month-old babies, they saved them. They hid them as Hamas broke into their home. They heard the gunshots outside. They knew they were coming. And they didn't know what to do. They had seconds to react. And when Hamas got to their front door, the terrified parents wrapped their kids, 10-month-old twins, and hid them in a secret compartment in their home. 10-month-old babies. The couple heard the gunshots in their neighborhood. They knew what was coming. And then Hamas busted through their door. They hurried up with seconds left and hid their babies in a secret compartment in their home, and they tried to fight off the terrorists themselves. And they were unsuccessful. They were shot and killed, brutally killed. But thankfully, the terrorists didn't find the babies. 12 hours later, IDF did, as they had to sweep through the neighborhood, going house to house, hearing from families who were brutalized, women who had been raped, those who were left alive and not taken hostage, kids, hear about children who had been kidnapped. And they found those two babies. Those babies had been alone by themselves for 12 hours, and they found them. They hailed their parents as heroes for giving their lives for their children. There was an entire family, a young family, 4 kids that were wiped out. Hamas busted in their door. Those parents didn't have seconds to act and hide their kids, and they were all killed. That was Hamas that did that. Hamas that targets civilians, whether it's their own or Israeli civilians, they don't care. It makes no difference to them. They hate everyone that stands in their way of power. This isn't about freedom. It's not about free. It's not about free, quote unquote, Palestine, a fictional place for a fictional thing that's never existed in time. A name thought up by Hadrian and given spitefully to the area as an offense to Jewish people. I mean, the name is a joke, and people have adopted this thanks to Yasser Arafat, and they wear it as some sort of like cape of virtue when it's actually a joke. No, they're the ones who target the innocent and the civilians. And they only understand brutality, which means you have to respond brutally to stop it. And anyone who opposes that is part of the problem. Then you don't have a seat at the table, and you don't need to chime in on what's being served.